Yeah, everything I've done so far has been on Zoom, and I wanted to use other platforms and do different things.
Yeah.
One thing I think you might find interesting actually is using Spatial
Okay.
in the metaverse, and then screen recording though in Zoom, but having the actual thing in Spatial. Um,
So have like a an OBS virtual plugin for your monitor, wire that into Zoom, and then screen record from Zoom. You
yeah, and actually, I think Spatial is opening up the ability to actually record within the metaverse itself, within Spatial, which is a cool metaverse project, I think.
okay? Sick. I haven't
Um,
built on Spatial yet.
no, you should check it out. It's pretty cool.
Okay.
And I think they're also going to bring like token gating to it, which is pretty cool.
Nice.
Because then you can be like, all right, I'm going to airdrop every guest a NFT as like a key onto Spatial, so that they can actually get onto your podcast with you,
Yeah,
which I think is dope.
that's awesome.
Yeah. But anyways, as for how I've been doing things before, I'll just on Zoom has been I had a podcast, the blockchain booth, and I had my co-host Patrick, who was a guy that I played soccer with in college. Really awesome guy, super funny. He's amazing, but he knows nothing about Web3, nothing about blockchain.
Yeah.
And so the whole concept of the podcast was that he would basically sit there alongside me on the podcast, and we would interview founders and innovators and builders in Web3, and they would have to, one, all explain their definition of Web3 to him, along with like educate him a little bit in what their product is and how it works. And so it was super fun because he's just like, you can see the look on his face and the confusion on certain topics and things, and you really get to test the founder and test these people and see like, okay, like how good are these people at explaining these complex topics
Yep.
and these things to someone who knows absolutely nothing.
Yeah, so your Patrick got to learn about Web3 from ground on experience. And also to touch on your point, I think a founder, or not just a founder, anyone, if you can't explain what it is that you're doing in a sense that a kindergartner is going to understand what you're talking about, you don't maybe have a thorough enough understanding of what you're talking about that as much as you think you do.
It's so true. It's a really good point. And an awesome hack and thing I like to do is I will go on Chat GPT, and I'll be like, please explain to me the concept of the internet like I'm in grade 6, or like I'm in elementary school, or like I'm a college student. And you can like have it give you explanations of things guided in different levels of like vocabulary expertise, or like give me an analogy story to explain things. The power, I guess we're jumping into AI, and I love this.
Yep.
The power of AI in education, that's a big topic, and that's going to be huge. What do you think about that?
I think it's awesome. You know what's interesting about that is there's been a lot of negative recourse where like a lot of school systems are banning ChatGPT and other tools similar because they're concerned about the actual longevity of the students' learning, because they think it's sort of like a cheat code and they're not actually retaining the information, which I think is the wrong way to look at it, right? Because we shouldn't be using these things as a way to void your creativity in your mind. You should be using it as sort of a virtual assistant of sorts, right? So you can glean some understanding. Now, another concern that I have about AI is that it's never been easier to fake expertise in something. However, if I were to write a book on neuroscience using AI and then launch that and claim in my brand, oh, I'm a professional neurosurgeon, I know everything about this, and then were to come onto a public setting like this, it'd be very quick to realize maybe this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. But so it's hard to fake professional expert understanding in a live environment. But utilizing this technology, like these entrepreneurs, these guys that flex some kind of lifestyle on social media and sell a course. It's never been easier to fake expertise in any niche utilizing this technology. But so with I'll quote Uncle Ben: with great power comes great responsibility. These tools are amazing in the right hands if you use them responsibly.
I agree 100%. That is so true. And it's so funny you say that, because it's like this comes to this idea of like the intent of like what you're using the tool for, and like you said, power, responsibility. These AI tools have insane amounts of power and time saving capabilities, And it's this funny thing, like within the workspace, people say like, watch out, your job's gonna get taken over by AI. But really, honestly, more than likely, your job's gonna get taken over by someone using AI
Yep.
as a tool to make themselves like superhuman, right? Or replace 4 or 5 people because they know how to prompt, they know how to, manipulate it and push the AI to work as if it is 5, 6 people, right?
This AI revolution has created an entirely new occupation that is beautiful, and it's called a prompt engineer. It, the quality of your question determines the quality of your output, right, or your answer. So if you ask something that's 10 words and it's pretty indescript, it's pretty broad, you're going to get a very broad answer.
Garbage in, garbage out.
Exactly. But if you ask the same question but very honed in, very niche, you're asking for very specific parameters. You're putting brackets in there and then defining those brackets by different parameters. You're going to get a very legible result that other people asking the same question without the same vernacular wouldn't get that answer. So yeah, I think AI is awesome. I'm already, like, the second I got on ChatGPT, I started utilizing it for all sorts of things, ad copy and all my funnels. And it's not that I don't know how to do the skill. I can do it, but am I going to spend 25 minutes powering up, beefing up this fire 2 paragraphs on ad copy? Or am I going to throw it into ChatGPT and then get my answer out and go, this is pretty good? And then maybe run it through another AI protocol that can rewrite it and just use it as a rough draft to build something that is in your tonality. You could even feed ChatGPT a couple of texts that you've written, and then you can have ChatGPT on the same chain of threads. You can have it write copy in your tonality, in a voice that's similar to yours. Another really interesting way you can use it, you can, since it has data sets of basically everything on the internet prior to 2021, you can have it answer a question, like say an existential question from the perspective of Albert Einstein, the Gandhi, Steve Jobs, whoever prolific character you want to speak to. Obviously, it's taking a data set and defining from all the data that it has what this person may have retorted to that, and it's actually eerily accurate. In my opinion. Obviously, I can't confirm that because I've never spoken with Gandhi or
Elon Musk.
Jobs, Elon Musk, no. But it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, so like the tooling connected to ChatGPT now, as using like the API and people building different things that connected to it. You mentioned pulling things before, 2021. There's an extension on Google Chrome called Web Chat,
Yep.
and you can install it and enhance basically. You can set it up in the settings where it'll pull the top 10 results off Google related to your prompt, feed it into like the model of that initial prompt in ChatGPT, and then provide a response that cites the sources where it's coming from in the different areas of the response.
Yeah.
It's like, whoa. So now we can basically take like news that happened yesterday, and there's like 4 or 5 articles covering it, which happens a lot in the Web3 space because things, you know how things go in Web3. Things just
a month in Web3 is like 3 years in normal tech world.
Yeah, every day big news articles about something going down. And anyways, so like now you're able to actually summarize these different news things, etc., and be able to then actually consume it faster or share it or rewrite it, etc. And to your point earlier, I think the biggest thing that I find value with ChatGPT is ideation. I'll be like, yo, give me 20 ideas on like how to build a community in Discord, or like how to do something, or the name for something, and then it's just like it shoots it all out, and you're like, wow, okay, this is actually maybe a good idea. I could do something similar to this, and it's just like feeding off it like another human being. And then ideating, it's crazy.
Do you know who Patrick Bet-David is?
Yes.
Okay, so Patrick Bet-David has 2 guys that work for him. So when something comes to the forefront, something that as a prolific CEO on the world stage he needs to know about, get informed, he has these 2 guys go research it thoroughly and surmise it so that he can just take a 15, 30-minute meeting and garner the information. Now, ChatGPT allows you to do that. Maybe it's not as thorough and in-depth as actually the human element of doing it, but obviously, I don't know about you. I'm not at a point of scale where I can hire 2 people full time to be subject matter researchers for me. But it's just interesting, and AI and ChatGPT allows this into the regular man. Now, from a perspective, I'm not a teacher or educator in central education, but from their kind of perspective, thinking about it, I could see how ChatGPT and this AI revolution could be rather concerning, because if you're a sixth grade teacher and your D and C student sends in a essay and you're like, wow, this is prolific, this is very good, this is A material, you didn't write this, this is AI powered. Maybe that's a problem. Maybe they're not learning, but also maybe they're future proofing their life, right? With the whole idea of AI is going to steal your jobs. What if AI just takes the menial jobs that humanity probably shouldn't be really focused on anyways? We can automate it to a point of scale where it's being done as good, if not better than humanity. And then humans can choose to focus on creative endeavors that light them up more, and thus humanity's propelling and accelerating faster than it would be otherwise.
Oh, fuck, man, that's awesome. That is a great one. I love that. That's amazing. That's such a good one. One thing you said there earlier, which I think is another maybe concerning part of AI, though, is in the area which we're all familiar with, especially in Web3, of scams. Because now we can basically take a super accurate voice profile, as you mentioned earlier, right? We were talking about this before the podcast even started, that you can copy someone's voice with only a few minutes of like video footage. It could be something on YouTube. It could be something shared on social, Facebook, etc. Now, I'm Mr. Scammer dude, right? I've got your voice down to a T, right? And I can type stuff out and it comes out exactly as your voice. So now I can call your mom and be like, hey, mom, I'm tied up. I'm in Cuba. They need a $2,000 wired to this account instantly, or they're going to, cut my finger off, blah, blah, blah. And then, they're instantly like, it sounds just like my son, whatever, and boom, like send money, etc. Son gets home, he's like, hey, mom, and she's like, what the heck, blah, blah, blah. It's just like, these are the types of things that are going to get more and more evolved, like power responsibility, that whole thing, like, AI is so powerful. The manipulation aspect of it now is potentially, scary,
Yeah. Deep fakes are getting really good. I don't know if you've seen this, but it's happening to me a lot. I'm sure it is to you as well. These botnets on centralized institutions, Facebooks, your Instagrams, people cloning your accounts perfectly, one for one, and then DMing. They're using so they block you on your main account. So they're using a second account that then going into your following list, grabbing those people for warm leads, and then using that cloned account of yours to DM them and scam them. That combined with what we're talking about here, deep fakes and grabbing your voice and modulating that with voice memos, it can get very bad very quickly. And it's rather concerning. But also, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to look at an account and go, okay, wait a second. All these posts, all 400 of these posts were posted in the last 3 days, and the biggest one has 3 likes. I'm not so sure. Maybe I ought to text my homie or type in their username and see what's going on here. So, but it is still a concern. It is a big concern. Might be a little bit tinfoil hatty, but I think that these botnets. Okay, so we saw Elon Musk roll out paid verification, right? $8 a month, get your blue check mark for credibility. Pretty cool. Great. We saw Zuckerberg announce that he's going to do that for $14.99 on Instagram and Facebook. Okay. So what is now? This is this is a theory, but what if these botnets are actually being run by a little subsector in these large tech companies, solely so that they can then it's creating a problem, and then they go to sell you a solution. Right? Oh, we can fix this problem for you. It's just going to cost you $14.99 a month. I don't know. Maybe it's a little crazy, but it's. I mean, I don't know of a software that can clone a Instagram or Facebook account instantaneously and dupe it perfectly. To grab a screenshot of every single post and then crop it and then repost it could take a while. I don't know. I don't know where this is coming from. Have you dealt with this problem?
So I actually have a good story experience with this that's very recent. I grew, I've been growing my Instagram over the last little while, and I finally, I feel like I've made it now because I have scammers. No, I'm just kidding.
Yes.
So I had a couple of friends reach out to me and say, hey, is this you? And I'm like looking at the account, it's like the Dan Rodman with 2 N's, right? And I'm like, oh no. And I look at it, and it's like they even get it to like a similar amount of followers and everything, right?
Yep.
And I was like, oh no, I was like, that's not me. Like, please block report, right? And then one by one, more and more friends, more and more people. Hey, you got a scammer, you got a scammer. And I'm like, started to blow up my DMs, and I'm like, dude, guys, I'm sorry. Like, I report, like, I'm blocked too from them, as you mentioned. Like, please, like, please report, whatever, right? And then I had this one buddy of mine in the Web3 space. He's a very crafty, clever guy. His name's Tyler, and he basically was like, "Oh, I had this happen to another friend," and he's like, "Let me do this." And so he managed to somehow they DM'd him, right, and he
Yep.
was going along with the conversation, and I'm like, he's like baiting them on, and of course what they're trying to do is get him to send some money on this like exchange thing or something like this, right? And as they're doing it, he's like, "I'm having some trouble with this step." He's like, "I'm gonna take a screenshot here. Can you please like check this for me, right?" And then he uses this software where you can make like it's a link, right? And he's like, click the link to see like the picture of the step that I'm stuck on because I'm trying to send you the money.
Yep.
And as soon as he clicks on the link, it's an IP tracking link
Nice.
that collects the IP address, the device information, and the location. And so, boom, it pinged a location in Africa.
Yep.
And then basically, he reached out to them and was like, "By the way, we know who you are. We know you're located here. The authorities have been alerted, and if you do not stop, like they will be pursuing you. Right? This is like not a joke. Blah blah. Lawyers involved. Blah blah blah." And that account stopped, but then a different account popped up. So it's just
Yep.
like, so the point. It's just you never know. But I thought that was funny and maybe valuable for people if they're in that space. I can't remember the name of the site. It was a good few months ago. I think if you just look up like IP link tracking location,
Yep.
it's a software system that you can kind of do.
That's super useful. Let's go back a little bit. So you said your buddy Patrick. So, which funny enough, my mentor into the space and my CEO of my current project, his name's Patrick. So he got into learning about Web3 from founders live time while doing podcasts. And you said that you made the founders define Web3. Well, I don't know what Web3 is. Wink, wink. Explain it to me. What is Web3?
Oh man, this question's amazing because everyone has different definitions, and I think that's okay. For me, a lot of people jump into the definition of Web3 as Web1 being, read-only internet, Web2 being the read-write internet, and then Web3 being like reading, writing, and ownership. And I think ownership for me is maybe the one word that maybe defines it the best, as in like now you've got a way to actually have digital ownership. And Web3 enables wallets, which is what we use and interact in the space with blockchain. And it creates such an amazing plug and play system where we can take our own digital identity ownership assets and we can be extremely versatile and modular with them across the internet now in a new way. I think that's maybe my general definition of it. What do you think?
That's absolutely true. I would say so. So what I would say is it's taking what may be old institutions and old, models of reality in every industry, every niche, and it's adding new technology integrations so that they're up to speed, right? Like when we talk about money's been the same since we moved off the trade and barter system. We've had a centralized currency that people agree is okay. This is worth this, and we can exchange this for this, and that's an equal fair trade, right? And we could go down the whole rabbit hole of how after we moved out the gold standard, money's not really whatever. Well, we could touch on that, but here's the thing, right? So you've got every different industry that's sort of outdated. It's come to play. It exists, but it's sort of stagnated. And now incorporating under the front engine, the hood of each industry, you can put blockchain technology in there, and now all of a sudden, like let's talk about DeFi. DeFi is decentralized finance. Now you can self-custody your money. You don't have to rely on these centralized institutions that are actually fractionally reserve lending your money. They're making 10, 12, 15% a year on your money and paying you 0.01%. You can self-custody. You can make 8, 10, even 1,000% ROA when you're in a staking pool in LP or AMM, right? You've got DeSo, decentralized social media. You and I both have large social media followings at this point, and like congratulations to us for being consistent and building that up. But I don't know if you've dealt with this, but I talk a lot about the Federal Reserve's a private institution. I try to educate people, and maybe I use a little bit of a fear-mongering tactic to, get their attention, because you got to have an attention grab, because some people's attention's like a goldfish. But I do educate. I bring that value. But a couple of times now, I've got in a lot of trouble with Meta and with TikTok. I've said something that might have hit a little too close to home, and I got censored, and I got in a lot of trouble, and I got threatened that we're going to deplatform you. And blockchain technology, that can't happen. So Web3 is leveling up, utilizing modern day technologies, all these different industries, so that it can stay up to speed. And ultimately, Web3 puts the power back into the end user, which is the average man, as opposed to these oligarchian companies that they're not monopolies, except one parent company owns everything in the industry. So I mean, it is a monopoly, but on paper it's not, right? Web3 fixes that, and it's beautiful, and we're going to reach critical mass here. I think after this next bull run, we're in a bear market right now, which I think is beautiful, because all these people here are real builders. They're built to last, and they're not in this, obviously financial gain's nice. We like making money. We like being in the green. We don't like seeing the reds. But in spaces like this, where everyone's sort of bleeding, there's a lot of blood in the streets, it's beautiful, because that just means if you dollar cost average in, you're probably going to see a return here. I think this next bull run that we're going to see is going to put into the media machine, the engine, the little engine that could. They're going to start changing the narrative and start issuing CDBCs and try to do all that with a public credit score system, a social credit score system, and then it's going to be normalized. People are going to start understanding this technology. But now where we're at, where the public adoption curve, we're still early. Adoption curves look like this, right? We're still at the first beginning of the critical mass. So to understand Web3, really understand it now, is a beautiful thing. And I think ultimately, Web3 is just utilizing technology to update old industries. That's it.
Dude, honestly, I think the one of the good examples regarding being in control of your own currency, real world scenario, was with the war, Russia and Ukraine. There were certain centralized banks within Ukraine that were, infrastructure was destroyed, right? And I remember there was a refugee, I think it was a Twitter post I saw about this maybe, and he, fled the country, and he had his most of his digital currency on a Web3 wallet, so that he was able to just go anywhere where there's internet connection, regardless of country, and still have access to finance, to his funds that were his.
Beautiful. Did you see what happened with the Canadian truckers when they shut down the border?
Did hear about that a whole bunch, yeah.
It's scary, man. They all of a sudden, they took them off payroll. They said, everything's frozen. We've frozen your bank accounts. Okay, you're going to play ball. You're going to drive for us, or you're not going to be able to feed your family. And that's scary. And any government can do that at any point in time with a flip of a switch. And with blockchain, you can't turn my money off. I hold my own money, bro. So it's just, it's something that you got to look out for. And I'm not against, centralized institution that can, some people want to be led, right? Not everybody's going to be a leader. Some people want to be led. But when it gets to a point where it's sort of dystopian and rights and liberties are being taken away in the sense of for safety, we're walking a fine line here, and we got to really think about, is this something that really makes sense? Like, ultimately, where we're at in Web-2 social media, freedom of speech is a fallacy. It's not real. If you say something someone doesn't like, all of a sudden, you're public enemy number one. And that's weird, man.
Totally. And so I guess I'm curious then on what do you think are the different ways that we can get people to realize more this potential? Or what are you seeing as the best onboarding ramps, or realization stories, analogies, etc., to get more people to start to maybe look at taking a little more action? I'm curious.
So on my TikTok, I have a gaming presence. I also have a personal brand about entrepreneurship and stuff, but I have a gaming brand, and I've sort of moved more into talking about and streaming Web3 games, talking about blockchain. What I have noticed is when I do that, I have a large drop-off in audience participation, right? And it's because of ignorance. Ignorance is often based in fear. By the way, ignorance and stupidity are not synonymous. Ignorance is a lack of specialized knowledge in a certain field. And a lot of people are ignorant to what Web3, what crypto is. How I found a lot of success is jumping into my Discord with all my community members that really love me and have chosen to participate actively with me. I jump on a call with them and I give them the kindergarten lowdown and I say, look, man, and I hold their hand. I screen share. I show them CoinGecko. I show them what a cryptocurrency is. I explain, what fiat. You're holding U.S. dollars. That's great and all, but the M2 money supply in the last 3 years has increased by almost 60%, and we're at a 12% inflation rate. Like, is that really where you want your money? Like, do you want a deflationary liability or an inflationary liability or a deflationary asset? It's up to you. But so I kind of try to hold their hand. I'm like, look, get a MetaMask wallet. It's free. You just sign up for one. Don't lose your seed phrase and don't show it to anyone. I educate them about all aspects of it, and then I send them an NFT. I've minted out several NFTs that I lazy minted, and they're not really. They don't really have a floor. They don't really have any utility. It's just it's a learning point, right? And I send it to them. I send them the token ID. I send them the contract address, and I'm like, okay, you see that really long string of random stuff? Well, that's what this is, and you can go here. ETHScan, and you can plug that in and you can look at volume, you can look at all the transactions, you can backlink and use the spider web to see, oh, this wallet actually used this. And if you go on like OpenSea, plug in the wallet, sometimes they're not even secret, and you can see they've got their Instagram and Twitter plugged in. You're like, okay, this wallet belongs to this person. So I educate them about how decentralized ledgers work, how and an analogy I love to give, I tell them, and I preface this with, don't actually do this, you'll probably get arrested. But I say, all right, what do you think would happen? And I'll ask you, what do you think would happen if you went into a Bank of America, JP Morgan Chase Bank, and you asked the teller to show you their ledger? I would like to see your orders of transactions that have gone through this bank in the last month. What's going to happen? They're going to
Get out of here.
They're going to kick you out. That's not public. You can't know about that. Or they might even call the police. They might say you're a threat, right? But ultimately, that's the beauty about blockchain. And I try to hold their hand a little bit, not too much, because you don't want them to be non-self-sustaining. You want them to be able to, right? Like, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. If you're trying to force it to drink and it's really not interested in the information you're feeding it, then it's just not going to be very helpful. However, the teacher will appear when the student is ready, right? So you can sort of meet people where they're at. If they're like, yeah, I really don't want to get Bitcoin or Ethereum, but I do play a lot of video games, and I would kind of love to, I'm not a streamer, I don't have a lot of followers, but I would love to, make a couple bucks here and there playing video games. And I'm like, okay, maybe check out like a blockchain ecosystem like Axie Infinity or Wagmi Games. Maybe check it out. You don't have to buy in. It's not a pay-to-win economy, but just try it out. If you like the game and all of a sudden a month later you've been playing it an hour a day, look at that. You made $30. That's crazy. You have a real world tangible result from playing a video game. How could that have happened if blockchain's a scam? So that's how I've seen success with it. I will admit though that has sort of a low adoption curve, right? Because how many people are you gonna speak to and it's gonna resonate with them, right?
Right.
So I mean, when you're talking about lead capture and the top of your funnel is education, you're cutting yourself off at the foot, because if you have to educate someone in order for them to see what it is you're doing and get to your value proposition, you might lose them at the education funnel. Because all of us builders, we love grabbing a new course on Solidity.
Yeah.
Like, yes, woo! Most people, they're like, oh, I have to learn this? Nah, dude, I'm just going to go back to my job. Like, I don't want to do that. So if you'll lose a lot of people at the top of the funnel of education, and that's not going to change. But if you can get them in one of their pain points of what they love, gaming, or maybe they like social media and they want a decentralized platform, check out Lens, right? If you can get them in one of their pain points that they love, and you can spark that interest in them where they start going down the rabbit hole without you holding their hand, you've just adopted a new person.
Totally. And I think the rabbit hole is actually going to change quite a bit. Because if you think about it, the rabbit hole is going to get easier, user experience and all that type of thing. It's getting better and better and better with all the tooling out here. There's an analogy I like to use, which is regarding my background is mechanical engineering. So I like, building cars and stuff like that, is that, right now we're in this age of like the vehicle we're driving in this space is like a 3 on the tree, old school shift, like 1940 car that's like tough to drive. It's really difficult to drive the vehicle to get from point A to point B. But like before you know it, we're gonna be in like the stick shift to the automatic to now like self-driving cars. And like I think the user experience when you ask someone about one comparing blockchain technology to the technology behind an engine in a car, like not many people know like how do pistons and valves work and the crankshaft and the flywheel and the spark and everything to make the engine and make the car move. They just know, yo, I'm gonna get in this thing, turn it on, press the gas, and go from point A to point B. But hey, man, stoked to have you hop on too, man.
Yeah, for sure. Speaking of which, most people don't even understand how the transmission works. In the gearbox, how you would be going from gear 1 to gear 2, in a sense, switching from layer 1 to layer 2 either, right? In and of itself.
Totally.
So I completely get what you mean. The means to understand and to like grow with this technology is only going to get way better in the future, by the way. Oh yeah, there we go. Thank you very much for getting me in the shot. My name is 150, everybody, in the cipher. Patrick is my real name. But it's a pleasure to hop in on this conversation with my co-founder, Jacob.
Yep. So what's funny is we were just talking about you. So you got your Patrick. This is my Patrick, and we were talking about the educational curve, right? And so I had heard of crypto. I jumped in initially, bought a little bit of Bitcoin, a little bit of ETH, way back when 2017, right before the big bull run. But as far as overall understanding of Web3, this was my onboarder as we were talking about the education. And it's not like he again, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. He fed me the information at a level of my understanding. He met me where I was and was patient in helping me understand all of these different derivatives and aspects of the technology until I got to a thorough understanding where I fell in love with it. I jumped down the rabbit hole, and then all of a sudden, instead of him feeding me information, now I'm coming to him and I'm going, can you explain to me this protocol? And he goes, yeah, of course I can. And so it's the at some point, if you've got a good one, the student will become a self-starter and start educating themselves instead of only relying on you hand feeding them. So it's okay when you're onboarding someone to hold their hand in the beginning, but ultimately you want them to be able to jump and fly themselves, because that's what makes a good student. What do you define Web3 as? What is Web3? If I was a kindergartner and just didn't know what was going on.
I'd say Web3 is the trustless, permissionless internet that is a layer of authenticity for whatever you're trying to do socially and financially.
Ooh.
That's good. That's way more concise and less words than what I said.
But both of us, it's tough to summarize that in a short fashion, because I was telling him I have this other podcast I do where my guy's Patrick, and it's called the Blockchain Booth, and he doesn't know anything about Web3, and so we bring on different founders and entrepreneurs. And we ask all of them to explain to him what is Web3, and the definitions are so across the board, right?
Yeah.
And it's awesome. It's beautiful to hear everyone's different way of talking about it, Mm-hmm. So it's neat. I like that. Appreciate it, man.
Yeah, no problem. I'm glad to chime in and sort of like give my truth of what Web3 is. Because Web3 is a lot of different things to a lot of people. Because people are in Web3 for specific purposes, for their business. Or for their family, etc., right? And I totally understand that in a whole perfect world that you can't necessarily please everybody, but you can make a way for them to fork it and then please themselves, right? And that's what Web3 can be and should be, right? Many different things to many different people with many different elaborations and definitions, etc., etc., asterisks.
That sounds a lot like what we're building at Bolt.
It is exactly what we're building at Bolt.
Yeah, you're familiar with GameFi?
Mm-hmm.
It's a beautiful convergence of gaming, but also financial at the same time. And I think it's really cool. I'll use this camera right here to showcase what this is before I have Pat touch on what it is exactly. But check this out. You guys will get a kick out of this.
Actually, I took a video of you showing this to a friend of mine there just before we started the podcast.
Yeah.
And it's really clutch to see his reaction on everything. It's really neat.
Nice. So check this out, guys.
So for those that are watching the video, he is holding up a 3D printed MVP that I cooked up in the lab with an NFC chip embedded in it with our logo to the brand, and it is showcasing an augmented reality based animation video that was created by Alexander Mazai, the founder of NFTs.tips. And he's a Bored Ape holder. He's got multiple Bored Apes. He 3D animated his Bored Ape doing windmills on the PCB CPU dance floor that we have in our DAO toolkit.
Three of your closest homies want to build together, right? Maybe you're in a DAO and you guys have a bounty for some marketing thing for a company, right? And you want to build that real world tangible. You could jump on a Zoom call, right? That's, I guess, sure. Or what if you jumped into a mutual 3D rendered space that you can jump in VR and actually build in tandem with them live time with all your avatars, and all the while you're recording it as well. So your SOPs, your key processes are being documented. So it's sort of educational, but it's also entertainment too, because you can post that up as content. And if you used a protocol like Lens, that content, you can actually put it behind a token gate paywall. So there's, what is that, four monetization methods in one action all at the same time, not to include the bounty from accomplishing the mission. It's very interesting.
I gotta dive deeper into this, man. We need to jam more on this. I need to learn some more. And I think honestly, like, it's interesting. You talked a little bit of like the mentors earlier, and in relation to that too is like the word like community, and how all these projects, like even even GameFi projects, games themselves have a long time existently have had these communities that come together. And it's really interesting how, some people I think had defined when I brought on the podcast there that Web3 kind of is in a way like about community. And I think an important part about that is like when you're defining the definition and difference between audience and community, how like an audience, everyone's facing one way and looking at the speaker, looking at the company, etc. But in a community, the chairs are all turned inwards and people are facing each other. And I thought that that's like a good frame of reference to see like what that is. And so curious to hear a little more thoughts on like community from you guys, and what do you think of the importance and how it's set up and et cetera.
100%. So to touch on this from a social media influencer's perspective, right? I have a TikTok built around a Web-2 game, and it's reasonably large. So when someone follows you on social media, they are it's a two-way street. Communication is a two-way street. They're giving you permission to speak with them at a level about a specific topic. And so where the drop-off that I spoke about earlier on trying to sprinkle them in with the blockchain education, they haven't given me permission to talk about that, right? And so the difference between audience and community, audience it's very niched in, it's honed, built around a very specific thing. They do have that one shared mutual thing. But when you have a community, especially in Web3, a lot of these people are very like-minded individuals. If you have a DAO built around marketing and built around hitting bounties for other Web2 or Web3 companies, every single person in there has some sort of specialty around the marketing veil. So they all have a mutual point of interest to talk about, right? As opposed to, out of my 150,000 followers, like not all of them can talk to me about what's a non-fungible token. Most of them get lost, right? Whereas in a community that's centered around blockchain, that's a easy question. And so I think community is largely centered around just a larger network of mutual shared passions. Like Bored Ape Yacht Club, why a token that was minted for 0.08 ETH, which at the time, including gas, is like $165? Why is that trading reasonably and in a bear market at well over $200,000? It's kind of weird. Well, it's because that community is knit around a exclusive experience of partying on yachts, and has a lot of high net worth, affluent individuals, right? So that community is full of people that would be in those social circles even without the token, right? Those people are all friends, they're all buddy, and it would make sense for them to be in Miami partying on yachts. Whereas someone that doesn't really, they may not have those same shared interests. They might not have a personal brand, that they wouldn't really have those shared interests even if they did find their way on the yacht. They wouldn't really be at a level of awareness to be conversing with those people at a reasonable, back and forth.
No, totally, man. Yeah, I was gonna say too is like talking about the community in general too with games. I think gaming is really interesting because of the aspect that as human beings we're always trying to overcome challenges. That's kind of like what games represent a little bit. And so I talked a bunch about this in the one workshop I did at Camp Biddle. The aspect of gamification in community and the value that it can bring you have to be very um, like kind of keyed in on whether or not it's for the intent of like just a marketing ploy or whatever, or whether it's actually more for the fact of building the actual value within the community and it's like aligned with it. But there's so many fun things you can do within your community, especially within Discord, with creating different systems with just points, badges, leaderboards, and things like that, which like they don't necessarily have to have real world value, but people will do more. They say was the quote, men will do more for medals than for money, half the time. And
Yep.
so there's this whole aspect of bringing that in and using that to like as a superpower for the brand, for the company, for the game, or whatever it is. I see as super useful.
For sure. And it's great because the new metal is the NFT now, if you think about it, because you can receive an NFT just for being early and absolutely like killing it by bringing your community in to adapt, right? Or you could be receiving an NFT for creating a solution and Gitcoin, right? And enabling the future, really. And then people will know who you are because of that NFT. And they can literally create gates hyper specifically for your wallet. So now you get recognized every single step of the way, no matter where you go in cyberspace. Just fantastic. You're completely right about that.
Yeah, the similar to the quote you said, the man who loves the process will go a lot further than the man who loves the results, right? And so when we're talking about Discord community engagement strategies as well as like GameFi combined in it, right? It makes a lot of sense to have something that is it doesn't have to be financial, but it can be financial, or it could be like a leveling system. Like, hey, if you submit an art piece this week, you'll be entered in for a raffle for this token that gives you a networking event with these people, right? It doesn't have to have a financial element, but some people are more money motivated than others. But it's not like community-centric things. A lot of people are more motivated by human interaction than money. And so building a good community, I think, centers largely around allowing those individuals in the community, instead of, if we're talking about like a tree, instead of this person in the community connecting with you and this person in this community connecting with you and everybody just routes back up to you, it's more about this community member aligning with a mutual interest with this one. So you have a sort of a spider web of connections between everybody.
Totally. And one thing I was going to say, which I think is interesting too, is this aspect like we're starting to get a little bit more buy-in within our business itself, building the Discord servers, doing the community engagement with more Web-2 based brands. And how I explain it to them and kind of, pitch it to them in a way is like, listen, you got to understand, Web-2 is over here on this left side, and then Web-3 and NFT and loyalty and the blockchain aspects are over here. To get from here to here, the Web3 strategy is a very complex, go-to-market strategy a lot of the time, right? We've seen a lot of brands get it wrong. We've seen some get it right. But overall, the ones that get it right, and the best way to do it is to have this super strong community in between there, right? And so, like, some of them we're talking to, like, there's a team in the Major League Baseball we're looking at having some conversations with about not necessarily jumping into, like, an actual, you yourself launching, like, loyalty points, NFTs, etc., but like let's create a space where fans can do cool things within like a community-based system, and then that starts to get them in the frame of reference a little more, so it's a little bit more of a native shift now to then bring in these other elements. And so I'm really interested and kind of bullish on this aspect of just building these communities and these places for people, because it's so valuable to the brand and to like the company, because you can do things like with gamification too, where you're basically getting feedback from them. So you can like have an aspect for this game that we were working with. They had a feedback channel where people contributed valuable feedback, beta testing the game every day for 7 days in a row. They got a role tied to their, Discord profile that they were like a scholar and like a beta tester type of person, which is like, they would basically doing all this work just for like the badge and giving you an amazing feedback and direction on your brand, which I think is awesome.
Yeah, to touch on that, like something beautiful about what Wagmi Games is doing too that falls right in line with that. If you build a Web2 community and you just build the community authentically with organic growth strategies to get the community to connect, and then later on in the roadmap, just further down, then you add that educational element, and then you add the blockchain integrations. They're more, the rapport has been built further, right? So they like, trust, and respect you more, as opposed to just trying to immediately sell them out something and buy this, even though you don't thoroughly understand decentralized networks, right? Wagmi Games is building a game on the App Store. The UI UX just looks like your regular tower defense game. The large majority of their initial user base isn't even going to really know that the characters they're playing are NFTs that can later be sold for money. And so they're just playing a fun little game, and then later on down the roadmap they go that one of the characters animates up and goes, hey, by the way, this level 15 warrior that you have actually can be sold on GameStats Network for $200. And it's beautiful because this allows for the mainstream adoption of all these things. If you can build the community not with the close, not with the sale in mind, but just with native integrations and getting everybody to work together on whatever it is the community is built around, and then later you add that monetization aspect that the community will then reap rewards from, they're way more warm and open-hearted to it.
Totally. And I actually really think that loyalty, like points systems, will be like under the hood blockchain type tech that makes so much sense for brands to get into. And they might not even realize that they're actually utilizing like Web3 tech because it's so plug and play, the infrastructure of a wallet and the time it takes to set that up and to have that be modular. It's like the best way to do it.
Yeah, and plus,
Starbucks did it.
Yeah, they did, but they did it with Polygon. But the awesome thing about running your own EVM RPC is that you can do that, and nobody in the world needs to know that your EVM RPC exists. All you need to know is that your Genesis block is running and that your node operators are constantly keeping your own personal private blockchain running, and brands can do it that way if they wanted to, But I think it's great that Polygon and all these big brands are securing those partnerships and making them uber public, so now that the public knows what to expect and that they know that this revolution isn't going anywhere.
Yeah, and I think it's this funny thing that you can see happen where brands can kind of, if it was all like synonymous wallet loyalty program systems, they can kind of hijack other brands' loyalty programs. And I say hijack, but it can be actually a good collaborative thing. Because like Starbucks, for example, Dunkin' Donuts, for example, could launch and be like, hey, by the way, like if you're in Starbucks Odyssey program and you're doing this, you get a benefit over here on our program now. And it's public and they can tie into that. So
collaboration.
It's kind of interesting,
Yeah, it's kind of like the whole Uniswap, Sushi Swap dynamic in the community. I completely understand what you're saying there, for sure.
Is Starbucks a coffee company or are they a bank? Like really? Because their app, which is now integrated with blockchain technology, a lot of people, since you can pay and you actually, there are more tangible rewards when you're hosting money from, instead of paying with a card, you pay with your Starbucks card. A lot of people, a lot of their users actually just plant a couple bucks there, a couple bucks here, a couple bucks there. And it actually, they're controlling a large amount of liquidity. It's rather interesting, similar to McDonald's. Is McDonald's a burger shop or are they a real estate holdings company?
Heard that.
Yeah, they are both actually, but more so their real estate is what gets them the big Benjamins for sure.
It's interesting. And these are Web2 centric companies initially that are utilizing technology, not McDonald's so much, but more Starbucks, utilizing technology to vertically integrate into the space. And I think this is beautiful, and we'll see that happen in not just goods and services or food. We'll see that happen in many industries, primarily big time gaming this year is what it's looking like based on the amount of people that are here and what they're here for. And
Yeah. And so, the gaming booths here at ETH Denver, there's a lot of activity over there right now. It's pretty bumping over there. It's kind of neat. But honestly, I think we just have a few minutes left. Is there anything else that you guys just want to leave with everybody? Patrick, Jacob, what do you think?
I would say that I think there are a lot of people that have been on the internet growing up for a little while, and they are seeing peeps and chats of this kind of technology stuff a little bit. They really don't thoroughly understand it. I'd say you don't need to do anything, right? Do whatever you want. But I think it would be within your best interest to find someone that you like, trust, and respect that is demonstrating a level of proficiency in the space and come to them as a willing and able student. You need to be teachable and you need to be coachable. It is okay to be ignorant about a subject, and there's no such thing as a stupid question. If you don't ask questions, you're not going to get answers, okay? So find someone that you like, trust, and respect that has demonstrated a level of proficiency in some of these avenues and areas, and ask. Try to get involved, because this right now, we're at a crux in humanity, and there's going to be generational wealth built here. It's going to be crazy. And if you are early and you understand this, even if you don't fully understand it and you're just like, I'll dip my toe in the water, you may see some tangible rewards that you're going to love.
Absolutely. I completely agree. And for the most part, don't forget that there are some powerful people out there in the world that are actively trying to sell fake Bitcoin. I mean, like Bitcoin that is not actually on the blockchain. It's just on a spreadsheet somewhere, and it's just a matter of sort of understanding what real Bitcoin is as well. Get, situated in understanding how to verify what Bitcoin or Ethereum just so happens to be. Of course, because Ethereum is tied to Bitcoin at the hip because of how Ethereum launched. It's good to know that the technology in and of itself can be utilized for the greater good, and people can sort of understand what's going on transparently. And if somebody doesn't want to prove to you that they actually gave you a real Bitcoin, if you don't understand what you're doing, then of course, don't necessarily give them the time of day. And of course, find somebody else that's willing to operate in a more transparent way. That's what I recommend. There have been a lot of people who've bought fake NFTs, fake Bitcoin last cycle, and don't get caught up and swept up in the whirlwind of hysteria, and don't get robbed. So yeah, definitely good last words of wisdom.
Totally. And I think in general, the thing that really just makes me keep ticking in this space is almost like the difference a little bit between like what crypto is and what blockchain technology is.
Mm-hmm.
Crypto being built on blockchain technology,
Yep.
and how freaking beautiful blockchain technology is to build so many different things, from even like data to just so much more efficiency and amazing like products, dApps, etc. It's an amazing space to even look at building business and products on top of, even aside from anything even related token wise or with crypto wise. So super stoked for the whole space, and happy to share this space right now and have this awesome conversation. And stoked to go out and meet more people and learn what they're building.
Same. One more thing, practice safe sex, CEX, always self-custody. It's way better than actually relying on a centralized institution like FTX, Scam Bankman-Fried. You don't know where your money's really going. So practice safe sex, self-custody is way better than trusting an institution.
And it's gone.
Yeah. But where can we find you on social media?
You can find me as the Dan Rodman on Twitter, Instagram, and Telegram. Yeah, everywhere. And
Awesome.
I'm open. My DMs are open with stuff. I love to chat with people who want to learn. So hit me up. I'm always going to respond.
The Discord guru right here.
That's right.
Where can we find you?
Well, you can find me on Discord at BoltEVM, all caps, #1348, or you can find me on Twitter at BOLTVR. Thank you very much for listening. I'm Patrick at 150, aka, yep.
Sweet. You can find me at Jacob Livingood. That's JAKEBLIVENGOOD. Discord is capital D Dynamics &0888. And I'm not going to add you on Discord unless you send me a message somewhere else, because we could go into that, but Web3 is kind of dangerous space sometimes. So you got to be very particular about who has direct access to you, where links are being clicked.
Precisely.
Sweet.
Watch them DMs.
Yes, seriously.
Don't get fished.
All right, guys. Peace.